2007, 2017. 10 years makes a huge difference not only in the way that someone looks, but also in the style of music that a band makes. What's up everyone, John from ARTV. It's time for a review of album number 5 by the British rockers Asking Alexandria. It's the self-titled record out now on Sumerian Records. This album was very anticipated by fans, and I was interested in it myself because Danny Warsnop, the original vocalist, he's back after just a short departure. They had one album with Dennis Stoff on the lead vocals that was called The Black, and it came out just about a year and a half before this album, which quick turnaround, but obviously the band started teasing, hey, Danny's playing shows with us again, oh, Danny's tinkering in the studio. We pretty much all but knew that he was back in the band full time. You might have heard his project We Are Harlot, which was much more of a rocking approach, just dancing on nails, stuff like that. A very solid record. I gave it a 4 out of 5 in my review, and I really did like it. I also did like The Black. I know I never gave it a proper review. I gave it a joke review. If you know my character XX Brutal Swag 69XX, then you probably saw maybe that review, and that's not how I felt. That's how I would think that the character felt about it. But I did enjoy the album overall, personally. It's not something that was entirely for me, but some of those brooding, smashing tracks, I think that Dennis Stoff did a fine job on the vocals and filling in. But at this point, I think we kind of figured out that obviously Asking Alexandria was Danny's baby. He's back with it at this point, and it's nice to see. Some of these lead guitars from Ben Bruce really do cut, and the vocals sound very crisp and very angry at times, and for the most part, this definitely is something that is an evolution of the band. You see them putting their best foot forward, and it's not necessarily something that I expected going in. There's plenty of strong tracks here, and it's a good listen pretty much through and through, except for maybe a couple of tracks that stick out like a sore thumb. What I notice about the maturity with Asking Alexandria at this point in their career is the fact that they don't so heavily rely on screamed or unclean vocals. Yes, that's been a trend over the past few releases. They've been trending away from that, but here I really feel like they strike with a nice blend of hard rock, some of the harsher unclean vocals, but also some of the clean vocals, like Under Denver. I love the smashing chorus. Danny feels super powerful on that one. The striking drums, then something like Vultures, which is much more bare bones, but also getting across the point that somebody feels like everybody is feeding off of them and maybe trying to get something that they could gain. The lead single, Into the Fire, is another epic tune here. Just a great scorching rocker that maybe isn't the most original play in the playbook, but at the same time, when you play that card and you know your fans, you know what they're going to gravitate towards. And just because it's not generic, it's not super formulaic or anything like that, it's easy to have a good time with this track and just rock out. And I can say that for a lot of the moments, especially at the start of this record, and some that pop up near the end, like the harsh Eve with those rocking guitars. I Am One has those driving drums, and while I don't care for the lyrics on that one quite as much, those drums and some of the guitar tones on that one and the way that they strike all throughout really save and make that song for me. Alone in the Room is a captivating opener that really just gets you going right off the bat, and then Hopelessly Hopeful is surprisingly effervescent and super earwormy. It's something that I keep coming back to, and the chorus gets stuck in my head. It's a little different for Asking Alexandria, but I like seeing Danny Warsnop as a vocalist pushing himself, and the band channeling something that is still rough around the edges, but not too polished and not too overly done. It just leans into the pop world just enough to make it work. Where Did It Go is actually a pretty crushing anthem to those that are maybe taking advantage of somebody or else want something, and that is kind of a recurring theme. We see that on Vultures, like I already mentioned, but Where Did It Go? It just feels very angry, and the layered vocals might be a bit off-putting at first during the chorus, but Danny sounds a bit more unique. He stands out on this track, and even in the track listing. I think the guitars maybe aren't the most inventive thing out there. They could have been a little bit fresher, especially during the chorus, but still, it sticks in your memory for a reason, and I do think this is one of the better tracks here. That, and right at the end of this record, besides the Into the Fire radio edit, I don't know why that's included on every edition, it's not something that I personally need, we have Room 138 actually closing this thing out. And it's a great nail in the coffin in a way. It's something that does feel very spirited, angry, harsher vocals are kind of conjured up, and you get this feeling of maybe a little bit of earlier Asking Alexandria, but also with that wisdom and the kind of way that that they've evolved and the way that they see things now, maybe a bit more jaded. I feel like on their early records, while some stuff I can go back to, some of that anger did feel a bit forced, and it feels maybe a bit outdated, obviously, at this point, because they were much younger at that point in their lives when they were writing this material, but this just feels fresher to me, and I do enjoy it. It's through and through a pretty solid rock release, something that does trend towards the harder side of things, and if you're into that, I couldn't see you being that unhappy with this release, other than the track Empire, which features a rapper for some reason. Bings, I think is how you pronounce it, and that track really is just out there. It feels like a Sleeping with Sirens throwaway, something off of their most recent Abomination Gossip. God, that was a bad, rough outing, and to get visions of that while listening to this, not a good thing. I do like the opening guitar riff on that one. The tone there feels a little bit early to mid 2000s, which I obviously like. I'm a big fan of that time in rock. But as soon as the rapper comes in, it just immediately feels corny, and the whole track just feels like running a circle of like, what are we doing here? Definitely have to knock off some points for the lack of originality here and there in the lyrics, but at the same time, I can't knock too many points off because you come to a band like this, you don't necessarily come for the most extravagant lyrics out there. It's just some of the moments like I Am One, Empire, When the Lights Come On. Moments like that stand out as being weaker in that department because you are forced to pay attention to them a little bit more just because of the way that the track is centered. Maybe the instrumentals just aren't gripping me as much on those tracks, but overall, I do feel like the band played pretty tightly here, and especially some of the openers, super fiery. They get you amped up, they get the job done, and they really don't let up for the majority of the album. Me personally, I did enjoy this record. I'm gonna give Asking Alexandria a strong 3.5 out of 5. But I want to know, what do you guys think? Are you happy to see Danny Warsnop back with the band? What do you think about the guitars and the overall sound of this record? I thought the drumming was standoutish. I think some of the guitars could have been better in places, but overall, pretty pleased in terms of the instrumentals and the vocals on this album. But please leave a like on the video and let me know what you thought down below. If you're able to support what I do here on this channel, 1, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on future uploads, and 2, donate on Patreon. It's this annotation over in the corner of the screen, or else the top link down below. You can also pick yourself up some merch at the second link. You can catch a couple of recent reviews right here floating below me. All of my socials are linked in the description. Other than that, I'll see you very soon right here on ARTV.